everybody. Welcome to Indie Agency News Live. I'm Doug Zanger, editor-in-chief of Indie Agency News. We are live in London, and you can see I got man bun. Or as we like to say in June, the can bun, in courtesy of the Cannes Lions. Little bit of news here. The first annual Indie Agency News Indie Agency Pet of the Year competition is open. Entries are open until the beginning of December. I think it's December 8th, but we just posted it on indieagency.news. You can see it on the LinkedIn. Entries are free. We will be doing a live stream, and you will be voting live for the dog, the cat, the hamster, the horse, the ferret, the whatever, the fish. If you have an agency pet, whether you work in an office or at home or both, they're eligible. Must be independent agencies only, please. But we're excited to do this. This is really a lot of fun, and honestly, this is what the industry is all about. Speaking of fun, and I have to qualify this. So I am a word person, but I love design. I absolutely love design, and I'm just a fan of design. Designers to me, whether they're visual, whether they're UX, whether they're CX, designers are just genuinely heroic in so many ways in this industry. And there is no better place for design than Under Consideration. If any of you, and you should be, number one, you should be supporting them. But Under Consideration, brand new. It is a playground. You will, even if you are not a design person, you should watch, you should linger, you should learn, because it is absolutely one of my favorite places to go. And we always want to be supportive of people doing great things for the great people of our industry. And we have the founders of Under Consideration here today, because they are going to be talking about the event that they had in Chicago. And I'm bringing in my good friend, Bennett Bennett, founder of Aerialist and a contributor here at Indie Agency News. Bennett got a chance to go to Chicago to the brand new conference, and I am going to be the producer on this thing, so I am going to go away. So Armin, Bryony, thank you so much, not just for being here, but thank you so much for everything you do in our industry. And like I said to everybody, please support them. Bennett, take it away.
For sure. Thank you, Doug, Armin, Bryony. Thank you for joining and being part of this Indie Agency News Live situation. It was such a dope privilege to go to Chicago, stop by this event for the 2 days, like right by Millennium Park, gorgeous venue, like just fantastic crowd. And for my first time going to something like brand new, like I've been to a ton of conferences, I just felt like this was so refreshing. It's such a refreshing change of pace to see people, to go from the ad world where it's about awards, it's about this, it's about that, to a design conference where y'all are solving really human problems in these really intricate, beautiful ways. But I'd love to start by at least, introducing the newer faces who do not know about brand new Under Consideration to the work that y'all do. So would love to give you guys the moment to, just give you a brief introduction.
Well, first, thank you for having us.
And second, we're going to be entering the Indie Pet of the Year award, because we have 4 dogs that can compete independently or as a group. I'm sure they'll stand. They're contenders.
Well, sadly, I only have bodega cats around the corner from me. So we'll take those submissions.
So in as brief a nutshell as we can, I'm Armin. And
Bryony.
Well, we're married. Just because otherwise a lot of the dynamic is misunderstood, but
or questioned,
or confusing. But we've been together as a couple for what is it now, 26 years,
something like that. I've lost track.
And we've been in business together since 2007. We both started as graphic designers working for other design companies. Eventually, we started a blog called Speak Up in 2003. Then at some point we launched Brand New in 2006. Then we went independent in 2007.
With the intention of having a very traditional design firm, kind of cookie cutter in that regards.
Yeah, and then through life circumstances, economic downturns, upturns, things like that, we started the conference, the Brand New Conference.
In 2010, after a various amount of blogs as well. We have an in and out of blogs throughout the decades.
So and then we can get into the details of what happened after Brand New, the blog, and Brand New, the conference. And then just to say that we've been independent for, since 2007. We've always been only the two of us. We tried interns for a while, and even that proved to be too much for us to handle.
Too much responsibility, too much overseeing, and a little bit of a loss of independence.
So, and we moved around a little bit too. We started in Atlanta, moved to Chicago, then New York, then Austin, and now Bloomington, Indiana, where we've been for the past 6+ years.
Wow. Well, that is a hell of a journey for the two of you. Like, first of all, wow. My goodness.
Like Kate Basie.
Yeah. I mean, and to do it as what I considered such a dynamic duo, as you can see in the background, pizza boxes in the background. You guys are familiar with them because I stepped into the conference and y'all were explaining, just the motifs and the imagery for this year's conference. I mean, I'm sure every conference has not a gimmick, but a motif that y'all, latch onto for swag and, background stuff on stage. But also, y'all came out with the illest pizza gear as clothing for the 2 days. Like, you will never see this much swag at a conference as Armin and Bryony, dressed up as the illest pizza maker designers on stage. Cardboard cutouts for for BNC Chicago all over the stage. It was, and I still actually have my make your own pizza box with the program on it. If we will get into the proper nuts and bolts of this year's conference, but this was really one of my favorite parts. Is this something that y'all ideate every year?
The premise for every year starts with the location. We will never host a conference in a convention center or what I call the hotel dungeons because they're impersonal. They're not memorable. So we'll always look for venues that really stand out that you will remember no matter what. And stemming from that, we tie the identity to the city itself. We find either a cliche or a stereotype of some sort or something that just stands out from the city and start to pull from it, but trying to push those boundaries of the expected solution or the expected materials. We like to push those materials and question how they can be used in a different way. We do have the challenge and the privilege of designing for designers. So the bar is really high, which is a fantastic goal to have. But at the same time, we can be a little bit more loose, a little bit more creative, because there's an inherent understanding from our audience of what it is that we're trying to achieve.
And for us, there's also the additional challenge that with Brand New, the blog, where I write critiques and opinions on other people, on other designers' work. So we talk the talk, but now we have to walk the walk with our identity. So there's always a lot of pressure to deliver something that, it avoids the cliche, avoids trends that showcases what can be done in a different way and sort of, gives us a little bit of standing ground to be able to, critique other people's work, but we never do that in a mean way, but just as a way of providing some street cred that we do know what we're talking about. We get our, we get knee deep into everything that we do. It's not just armchair critiques.
And then the other part of it is what we interpret as the sustainable side of the conference. most conferences that you go to, you end up seeing all of the swag, all of the stuff in the trash can at the venue, or if you're lucky, at the hotel. They made it that far. In our instance, we're trying to create materials that, like you're keeping that pizza box for a longer period of time. And some people have materials from 10 years ago, and they still have them on display on their shelf at either the office or at home. So we're trying to create little capsules. The program, for example, for all of our events is usually over 200 pages long, but it is capturing what is happening in design. It's a bit of an archive, not just this is the schedule, this is what the bio is, this is what you should be expecting over the next 2 days. You can look back and see what was happening in that particular year by collecting all of these different programs / books / compendiums.
Yeah, and I think you would think that in most conferences, to your point about making it personal to the city, to the design community, right? That level of intention, you're not really going to see in these major conferences, which is beautiful. And it also reflects in the people who end up on stage, the people who you have present and do these mini, I forgot the name of the split up breakout session.
15-minute flings.
Yeah, the 15-minute flings, right? Like, people go up on stage and they're like, yo, Brand New you guys have featured our stuff. You guys have spoken and critiqued about our stuff. We've been fans for years. There's such an interesting, I don't want to say a rock star like connection, but at least a kinship connection. Like, you guys not just, critique the work, but you understand because you've done it. You're great at your craft. Again, like you both said, a high bar. When it comes to bringing those individuals on stage, the thing that stood out to me the most as someone who's had to program panels and help with that sort of stuff, inclusion. And not just for the sake of it. It's like, I don't know who these people are, whether they're a duo of Orthodox Jewish women, one guy representing his agency in DC, people filling in, from design firms out in Australia, right? Like, what goes into that curation process? Because it's not just, who's making the hits right now, but who is going to, define the Brand New ethos, right? Like, is there, like, when it comes to a brand new speaker, like, how does that come about?
It's very nuanced.
There's no formula. What we found is that there's an element of, all right, who's doing good work now? Not necessarily the most popular work, but the most interesting work. That is either pushing boundaries, or that it is actually just reflecting the state of design at the moment, and that may not be the most exciting, but that's fine too. And it's trying to find people that may have, because we don't know, like, most often we've never seen, like, 90% of the speakers that we've never seen them present. So we're just making assumptions and guesses and making inferences from how they present themselves online, their website, their Instagram page, LinkedIn, whatever. And we're just like, this seems like a good story. Like,
but we've also worked very hard to get to that point. When we started the Brand New conference, we were relying a little bit more on that big name or that big story that was happening in the moment. But it was somewhere around 2015, 2016 that we noticed a nice shift going towards what we really craved, which was the trust in our audience to curate a group of speakers that maybe you haven't heard a single one of them. You don't know who anybody is, but you have the understanding and the trust of saying whatever they put up there is going to add value to my work, to my inspiration, to whatever part of you needs a little bit of a nudge. And now having that flexibility and that bandwidth of being able to pull from a larger group of people, we also focus a lot on who we think you should know about. And that is a lot of the underrepresented voices or younger voices that are not in the books, they're not in the blogs, they're not out there promoting themselves all that much just yet, or maybe they're starting to, but we have the opportunity to bring them and give them that opportunity, which other conferences don't do, because, as Armin said, there's no track record of them giving us a lecture or anything to say they're going to be a good speaker. So they really come from the heart and they put all of their effort into it. And it's amazing to see people who are nervous or feeling a little bit out of sorts, how much growth they have and how much confidence is built on that stage moving forward.
And also part of it is that we like to take risks, and we're small. So I mean, obviously we're small. It's just the two of us. So there's no committee. Like, we don't have a group of people trying to agree on who to invite. Like, literally the way we select speakers is like, we'll go through some. We're doing research all year round. Like, we're always, if we see someone interesting, we'll just drag it into a folder, just called potential B and Com speakers, and then we go through it. Like, does that seem like a good story to you? And and that's it. Like, that's the end of it. And
well, we do have some certain buckets. We want to make sure that we're showing, small design firms and large design firms, small clients, big clients, in-house, they are certain things that we want to make sure that we're covering with the final mix.
Yeah, but I think the lack of not being risk averse has really helped us in the past couple of years in really curating something that is unique, original, and giving people that haven't had a chance to be on stage in front of a large audience to do that. And more, 99% of the time it's just like everybody's like, wow, that was great. And even us, we're surprised. So it's always nice to have that payoff of giving someone the opportunity, and those people taking the opportunity to really just tell their story, because that's what, at the end of it, that's what matters. Like, what everybody has an interesting story to tell, and how does that apply to their how they approach work, and how then the audience can take their own personal story and apply that to their own work moving forward after seeing them on stage.
That's awesome. You, at the very beginning of your answer, you brought up the notion of the state of design. I've spent most of my career in advertising, where usually design is relegated to post-production and not given that opportunity to just take off the restraints of a client budget. I'm sure there still are in proper design firms, right? But in the ad world, it's so different. And, there's a nuance that I think our listeners, probably know of, but don't fully understand. So I think, to start, one, what is the state of design right now? And I guess, was there a hypothesis heading into the conference of this is what we think it looks like based on who we're bringing to brand new? And, and then it changed after this year's conference?
So the good and the bad thing about graphic design and identity and branding is that it can become very predictable. And, once a trend hits, it will last for 2-3 years, and it will just reapply itself over and over again, which is good and bad. It establishes some boundaries. And then what we're always trying to do is, all right, what is currently the trend or the approach or whatever it is, whether it's storytelling, whether it's applying illustration, whether it's whatever it is. And then how can we both represent that and then provide contrasting points of view to the trend, so that people can get the best of both worlds and decide which way to go. So yeah, that's one way of answering that question, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. I am boggled, because you two are in, you have your own design practice, and then you do this conference on the side. And I'm sure Under Consideration is still a blog, right? How does that, putting together a conference is months of work.
Yeah, each conference takes about 1.5 years in total.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, yesterday we signed the contract for our venue for 2025.
My goodness.
In reality, we do the conference and the blogs, and then when we have time, if we have time, we do other design work at this point, because the conference has grown so much and it now takes up so much of our time. And it's just the two of us.
Right.
That balance has shifted over the years. And at this point, I think we haven't really done any design work in the last couple of years. And it looks like that's going to be the trend over the next couple of years as well. Which is, I guess, part of the reason why we also enjoy going through the process of designing the brand new conference every year, because it keeps us kind of fresh.
Right. Love the game. So I know we probably have quite a few minutes left here. I know Salt Lake City is going to be the venue or location for next year. What goes into, I definitely want to know what goes into the cities y'all pick. Like Chicago, definitely like such a huge hub. Y'all have had Nashville, obviously New York in past years. Salt Lake City is new. Last time I had to think about Salt Lake City was the NBA All-Star game there last year.
It is a search taking into account like where you're asking people to go. And so having a balance of trying to move around the country so that one group of people travels more one year, and then that can either stay or do a small road trip, and while other people travel to the other side of the country the next year. But it really comes down to the venues. As I said, we try very hard to avoid all of the boring venues. So that brings us down to symphonies and resident-based theaters for the most part. So once you narrow it down to those and to the appropriate size, you want to find a city that is affordable for most people, and then that has the availability between the symphony and the opera and the ballet for a Thursday and Friday. So it really, really narrows it down very quickly, although it takes months to find the end result.
And then one other thing to add that's kind of interesting to the evolution of the conference is that when we first did it in 2010, we did it in New York, thinking, all right, there's a built-in audience in New York, so that even if by accident someone wakes up and stumbles onto the venue and like, oh, a branding conference, we just figured we can gather 400, 500 people just out of New York. And then we went to San Francisco, and then came back to New York a couple more times. Then we did Chicago, and that was, so the first few were like 500 people. Chicago was 750 people. And then we did then we went back to New York, and then we did a kind of like a big, we took a risk and went to Nashville, which is a smaller design community. And we just thought, well, hopefully people will fly in. And
we had seen a growing trend of people flying into New York or the other cities. So that audience was growing already.
Yeah, and then that year we ended up getting like 1,000 people, and I think it was only like 200 people locally and regionally that either woke up and walked there or drove, and then the rest flew. So that gave us the confidence that, okay, we can move around. We don't have to be tied to a big design community hub like New York, which is super expensive. And, now that our audience has grown a little bit more, we're also, and our budget has also grown in the sense that at the beginning we didn't have any money. I mean, we had money to do it, but now
not the first year.
But now sort of like the growth has allowed for the previous year's profit to sort of influence the next year. So now we have to find nicer venues that are, we're spoiling our audience and ourselves with. So, that also
again, but it's spoiling, but it's also making a memorable and special experience for each year that really stands out from all the others.
Yeah, and then you're just going back to Salt Lake City. I think it's an interesting city. There's a lot of contrast in terms of both nature and, both the nature of the one side you have the desert, the other side you have the mountains and it's lush, the religious contrast of the Mormons versus people that are not Mormons. And there's a sense of counterculture and progressiveness. And so it just seemed like an interesting place that is closer to the West Side. And it's sort of like in that in-between spot in the U.S. where it can satisfy both coasts, and the airport is super nice. So nice. Anyone traveling into it will be very pleasantly surprised.
Well, I might have to visit. Sure. I feel like I might have two more questions if y'all don't mind. One of them is, you're 13 plus years in with building up brand new, one question that pops up in my head is, you know, doing all this over this time, like what are the biggest lessons, right? You know, whether it's to your own individual crafts as designers, right? Or to just your place in the thick of things, right? Because there's 99U, there's all these things, but like you two just you get to exist, you get to allow other people to show up on stage and exist. So I'm just very curious about, you know, what that evolution has done for both of you professionally and personally.
Personally, it has been very rewarding, and it continues to be, to see what the repercussion is of the things that we do. So, what happens with the young speaker that was terrified, that goes on stage, nails it, and over the next 5 years, you see the growth and the connections that came out of the brand new conference, be it a client or a partnership with another designer or a design firm, and what goes happening after that. Or people who meet in the audience and all of a sudden there's a collaboration, they launch something, or one hires the other. There's a lot that happens both in person and online that truly affects people's lives in little ways and in big ways. And being able to do that and then sit back and just quietly observe is very, very rewarding.
And then I would say on a more functional level, I think one of the things that's both great and terrifying about running events is that you prepare for the best. I mean, you expect the best, but you have to prepare for the absolute worst at every single moment, leading up to the conference, during the conference. So many things can go wrong that I think it just sharpens you to make quick decisions, to like visualize different scenarios in how things can play out so that you're ready to adapt to whatever happens.
That's where all your video gaming and as a teenager comes into life now.
I think there's you just being quick on your feet while being responsible for 1,000 people out there having a good time and getting their money's worth. So it's a lot of responsibility. It's stressful, but at the same time, there's also like, you know, that rising to the challenge gives you confidence to do other things in life, which, you know, I didn't expect that to be a part of the conference.
But in our unique situation of being the two of us being married, it has really benefited us to have that level of stress and intensity and ongoing adrenaline all day. But we can look at each other from across the theater and just with a glance, Armin knows, okay, she's going to leave the theater. Something's happening outside. I don't know what it is, but do not panic. I'm totally in charge in here. I will make sure. And there's a under communication that happens at all times that makes it a lot easier, that has made us realize, you know, that independence that we crave by not having interns and whatnot is one of our biggest assets when running these events.
Dope. And like I could tell from I was up in the rafters for most of it. So I know you guys were asking for great photos of the cutouts on stage. I did not have one, did not have a good photo, but just seeing, you know, anybody who presented, you know, Bryony, you would hop out and like have that follow-up question, or Armin, you would. And there was just like this free-flowing chemistry where it's like, even if I didn't know y'all were married, and I just found out today, right? Like y'all just have this like really great synergy that shows. And I feel like I wish we had more of that sense of teamwork. You know, again, like I'm coming from the ad world where we know it's a lot of competition for new business to be the best creative, but for, you know, because I feel like the mindset of designers is so different. And I feel like a little bit of communal and more just like, let's help each other. At least that's the environment I felt from this. Like I'd never been to another design conference before, but like now that's my expectation.
And that's something that has grown over the last few years. It used to be a little bit more competitive, a little bit more like, where am I going? I'm going to be paying attention to where everybody else is at and make sure nobody's in my way kind of feeling. But over the last, I would say 5 years, there's a lot more of, well, what can I do for you? How can we elevate each other? We all have the same common goal. Let's work towards it together.
Yeah, I think the design industry, especially branding, has changed a lot from the sole individual hero, from the days of Paul Rand, Saul Bass, even up to, whether it's Paul Scher, Michael Barut, of like the individual hero, Stefan Sackmeister, whatever. And now it really has shifted to the team mentality. The people that the work that stands out comes from an agency working together and all the multiple people that make it happen,
and
not
across
just
disciplines.
Yeah, not just the the genius person that makes everything happen. So I think for us that works as well. We complement each other, we know each other's strengths and limitations, and we play to it as best as we can, so that in the end we're fighting for the same thing. We're fighting for, one, to make a profit and be able to live, and two, for people to just enjoy their time there, and for the speakers, for the sponsors, for the volunteers, for everyone to have a good experience. So we do whatever needs to be done to achieve that.
Amazing. Do you have any favorite stories from either this year's conference or from like these last few years of running it?
I have a small fact that I'm relishing, and that is I have a spreadsheet with all of the speakers that we've had over the years. And I realized earlier, right before the last conference, that next year we're going to cross the threshold of 300 unique speakers on the stage of brand new conference over the years. And so that's 300 different people we've been able to put up there to share their stories.
And make connections with, because eventually then we become, it changes the dynamic of from having an email relationship where people submit their work and we put it up on brand new and that's it, to all of a sudden we shared an experience together that rattled everyone's nerves and we survived and we enjoyed it. So it really changes the relationship with people, which actually makes my job harder reviewing their work further down the line, which is like, now that I've met you and I know you, I assume you were nice, but now that I know you're nice and we share this experience, it makes it harder to write about someone's work.
Yeah, because during the conference itself, one thing that we do with the speakers is we also put them at a boutique hotel, something memorable. We try to avoid the Sheratons, the Hiltons, anything that becomes a wash in their minds looking back over time. And we take them all out to dinner and we have a nice experience. And throughout the entire event, we don't give them like a green room or a place to hide in the back. Everybody's part of the audience. Everybody's treated the same, be it the 24-year-old designer who is first being exposed to this, or the 80-year-old designer who expects, the red carpet rollout, that kind of thing. Everybody is the same. So it levels things down and it creates a kinship. At the last after party, some speakers were like, no, we're class 2022. And they're, they look back and they associate with the group in a way that is really, really sweet.
Dope. Well, now I'm at my last question. I'm grateful for Indie Agency News for giving me a bit more time here. Independence, right? This is a publication for the independents. You two are an independent entity doing dope shit. Any tips for those who are stepping in that path? There has been so much upheaval within the creative industries, as you know, and I'm sure a lot of young people or people who've been tenured are going to be stepping out on their own for the first time. So any tips from y'all?
I would say the first one is that it takes time. We struggled at the beginning financially, creatively,
administratively.
Yeah, administratively, specifically, on the administration side. It's just you have no idea how to do taxes. You have no idea how to get health insurance for yourself, how to maintain a proper business and run it well. But I think, it takes time. And I think there's a lot of pressure nowadays, or expectations that everything you do has to be a hit and a success right away and go viral, whatever it is. And it just, we've been doing it for, 16 years. And, at every year prior to this, you think like, oh, this is it, it's great. But looking back, we have figured so much shit out today that makes us better and has put us in a position where we can stay independent. And yeah, it just takes time. There's always moments where you're going to question, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to survive? And yeah, some don't, some do. But yeah, it's just like hard work, dedication, and just staying with it and sticking to what you believe in. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it really does make a difference.
And to that point, realizing that out of your 24 hours a day, you're not going to enjoy all 24 hours. And it's not all pink glasses throughout your business tenure. There's going to be a lot of tasks that you do not enjoy. Like, I don't know, taxes or accounting or anything like that. Project management, but you still have to do it. So you have to figure out how to internalize that, and if not make it enjoyable, make it bearable, because you don't want that side to drag you down. And eventually maybe you can hire somebody and bring somebody in for that particular task and take over it. But in the beginning, you have to play all of the hats. You have to do all of it in order to be able to break even. So just understanding that the good, the bad, the ugly, it all comes through you, and you have to find a way to balance it out and then try to enjoy it the best you can.
That's real. And some of that time, some of those 24 hours have to be for sleep. So I hope both of you have gotten so much rest after putting on such an amazing conference. Y'all already planning 2025, 2026. So, Godspeed to both of you. Thank you again for, being part of this conversation, being part of this indie agency news audience and community now. I definitely look forward to hearing more about Salt Lake City next year. I hope that, we can have a presence there as well. But Armin, Bryony, thank you so much. Stay on for one moment as I wrap with the audience over here. Everybody who's watching, thank you for joining us on Indie Agency News Live. As you heard from my dear friend Doug Zanger at the beginning, Indie Agency Pet of the Year is a very big deal. It's a holiday season. Shout out to all the pets who held it down in 2023. So make sure you go submit your favorite critter to us, and we'll be giving prizes at some point. But again, thank you all for joining in and tuning in. Armin and Bryony and Brand New. Make sure you follow everything they're about on the socials. Brand New Conf. And thank you for being here. I'll talk to y'all later.